conference has been talked about, this idea has been talked about for many years, and in fact it's taken place at the OU in New York, for example. There was a BAYTS conference, but it's never taken place in Toronto. So I want to give credit to our Moridas Rabbi Korobkin for being the inspiration behind the conference. He came to me and several other people one day and said, let's have a BAYTS conference. And I mean, aside from the deference of saying, okay, that's great, it is in fact a wonderful idea, and he's to be credited for the idea and for actually putting it into place, both in concept and in many ways in practice as well. So I'm really happy to see not only Gabbiam here, but non-Gabbiam, would-be Gabbiam, ex-Gabbiam, and people who just want to know more about what this volunteer profession involves. I know that's no joke when I say volunteer profession, because you know, this is not, as anybody who is a Gabbai knows, a matter of just dabbling in the task for a few hours on Shabbos. There's much more to it than that. But I remember before I first became a Gabbai, which was many years ago, you know, I looked up at these two guys on the bima who were sort of calling the balls and strikes for the minyan, and you kind of take these guys for granted. You know, you think to yourself, oh well, everything seems to be running smoothly, or if you're like some congregants, you think it's not running so smoothly, and you let everybody know about it. But I mean, I took for granted that there would always be two guys up there who are calling the shots and who are responsible for the flow of the minyan. And then when I became a Gabbai, I realized how much goes into it and all of the intricacies involved. And a lot of the intricacies involved, as those who are or have been Gabbayim know, have very little to do with halacha, and they have a lot to do with personal relations, which I'm sure many of us will talk about. The point is, though, that this is actually, although in practice it looks like a smooth flowing endeavor, it's actually an intricate task, and it involves not only a lot of layers of knowledge, which, by the way, you acquire as you go along, but it really takes an understanding of people and how people function and how members of a congregation function. So I'm really thrilled that those of you who are Gabbayim are here in order to be able to share your experiences, because we can all learn from each other. And also for those who are not Gabbayim or are not yet Gabbayim, I'm very excited to see you here as well, because it really is a volunteer task, which is an honor to undertake. And I really think that those of us who are doing it or have done it understand very well that there is a sense of nobility involved in it, and there's a feeling that despite all of the challenges involved, that we're doing something that is not only noble but is lasting, and is not only to the benefit of the congregations we serve, but to the people, to the benefit of the people in those congregations, and hopefully that will emerge from the comments that are made. We want to leave a lot of time for questions and to hear from all of you out there. We do have a panel which has decided not to sit up here until they're absolutely forced to do so. So, you know, I appreciate that decision. And you'll be hearing from the panel, and you'll be able to ask whatever questions or talk about, or even complain, or talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. But first of all, we're going to do something very special, and that's sort of set the halachic tone with a shiur on Gabbaus and what it's all about. And Rav Lichtenstei has honored us with his presence, and I'd like to call on Rabbi Korobkin to introduce Rav Lichtenstei.
Rabosai, Bruchim Haboim, and thank you all for joining us today. This is a very distinguished group of people who are truly Moser Nefesh. If you look under Google, under the words "no good deed goes unpunished," the definition is Gabbai. And it's true. It truly is. As Howard said, in all seriousness, there's a nobility to this, even though you don't. This is not a great way to make friends and influence people by being a Gabbai. But nevertheless, it's a necessary task. I had actually started the Gabbai conference concept on the West Coast a number of years ago for the OU, and we did it in concert with what was going on in New York. And it was very successful because as Gabboim, there's a desire to perhaps commiserate a little bit, to talk about some of the challenges that we all as Gabboim face. I, as a Rav, am especially grateful to the work that all of you are doing. And not only am I grateful, but I also have these feelings of guilt, because over the course of the year, I give tremendous grief to my Gabboim. I ride them hard, as the saying goes, in the sense that, if they're taking too long unwrapping the Sefer before they say the Yazor, come on, maybe I'm just doing it in my head, but there's that feeling that, there's this constant need to interface with my Gabboim, and sometimes at the spur of the moment, a Rav may get frustrated and may not express himself properly. So I always try to make it a point to let my Gabboim know how much I love them, even though I may have been a little bit short at one point over the course of the service. But the work that you're doing is tremendous and amazing, and we appreciate it. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of my rabbinic colleagues when I say that we love you and appreciate everything that you do. It's a tremendous chus to be able to ask Rabbi Lichtenstein to give us a shir on Inyoni Gabos, in trying to find the right person to be able to present a halachic shir, someone who is mikubal, someone who has already earned the name within the community as a great Talmud Chacham, as a Bal Halacha. Rabbi Lichtenstein was at the top of my list. He's the Sgan Rosh Kolel of Kolel Or Yosef here in Thornhill. He is the Rosh Chabura for the Pirchei Shoshanim Smicha program that's been going on here for a few years. And he is therefore the Rav Harashi of so many of the gentlemen who have received smicha over the last couple of years here at the BAYT. And it's a program that I anticipate will continue to proliferate within the community of Balabatim who are B'nai Torah and want to be able to continue their studies and be able to learn Hilchas Yoredeya and also Hilchas Shabbos and many, many other halachic issues for which a person earns smicha. So they finished Yoredeya here, and Rabbi Lichtenstein gives weekly lectures in Hilchas Shabbos, and truly is a baki b'halacha, and so it was therefore a very natural choice, and we're very, very grateful that he was able to take the precious time, little time that he has, to prepare for this shir. Rabbi Baruch Lichtenstei.
I'd like to thank Rav Korobkin for inviting me to speak. As the Rabbi said, and Howard said, a Gabbai is not an easy job. So I want to add one thing we say in davening, in the Mishaverach, by Musaf Shabbos, and there's a famous question. Why do we say anybody is oisik b'tzarech etzibur, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishalem scharim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should repay him? And all Gabboim know the answer to this question, because people who are oisik b'tzarech etzibur, you're not going to get paid from the people who you're serving. They're not going to appreciate it no matter what happens. People have kindness, people have complaints. The only one who will be able to repay you is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what we say, Kol mish oisik b'tzarech etzibur ve'emunah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishalem scharim. Hashem will pay you. So if you're not getting any payment from the congregation, don't worry. Hashem guarantees that He'll repay all the Gabboim who do the hard work. When the Rabbi asked me to speak, so there's lots of halachas that pertain to Gabboim, whether it's aliyahs, whether it's chiyuvim. And there's a famous saying that Gabboim don't have to know the Dalit Shulchan Aruch. There's 4 halachas of Shulchan Aruch. Gabboim don't have to know Dalit Chalkei Shulchan Aruch because there's a Rav in the shul. Any serious shiloh that comes, of course, you have to ask the rabbi in the shul, and he'll pass the shiloh. But Gabboim do have to know something that's called the 5th Shulchan Aruch. The 5th Shulchan Aruch is called common sense. And a lot of times, questions come up, and you have to figure out what to do. That's called the fifth Shulchan Aruch. So I'm not going to go into all the shilas that come up in Gabbiam, all the hard shilas, because they're going to leave for every Rav. But I'd like to go through a few points that I've seen in shuls that people I think are doing wrong, and therefore we'll discuss it and maybe clarify some of those issues. There's a halacha that says that we give Kohen the first aliyah, and then give the Levi the second aliyah, and then they give Yisrael. Just to start off with a joke, everybody likes to joke. There's a guy who came to a shul once, and they asked him, the Gabbiam went over to him and says to him, "Are you a Kohen?" So he said, "No, I'm not a Kohen." "Are you a Levi?" "No, I'm not a Levi." "Are you a Yisrael?" "Nope, I'm not a Yisrael." "So what are you?" "I'm a Shishi." I'm a Shishi. But Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, that's the order of the aliyahs. And the Ashkenazim, the Ramah says that you can't give a Kohen and a Levi any other aliyahs, only Kohen and Levi besides Achra and Machdim. By Sfardim, it's not that way. The Ramah, the Mechaber doesn't say that. So by Sfardim, in some communities they're not makbid that Kohen and Levi should only get Kohen and Levi, they give them other aliyahs also. But the Gemara says that in Gittin, that if there's no Kohen there, the string got ripped. Meaning, if there's no Kohen, what do? So you don't have to give a Levi. Rashi over there brings down two shittas in the Gemara. One shitta is you don't have to give a Levi if you don't want, and the other shitta is that you're not allowed to give a Levi. Once you didn't give a Kohen, you're not allowed to give a Levi. That's what Rashi brings down. The Ramah paskins that if there's no Kohen, you're allowed to give a Levi if you want. The question is what the Mechaber holds. Mechaber doesn't bring it down. Some people want to say the Mechaber holds you're not allowed to give a Levi once you didn't give a Kohen. And the reason for that is because if you can call the Levi up instead of Kohen, people may think he is a Kohen himself and not a Levi. But the Ramah says you're allowed to give a Levi. In today's poskim is a big machlokes what you should do. A lot of poskim hold if there's no Kohen, why get yourself into this question if you're allowed to give a Levi or not? Just don't give a Levi. I know certain people when there's no Kohen, they look around, they look to find the Levi. Not everybody agrees, there's no reason to go looking for a Levi. If there's a Levi, and you want to give him an aliyah, you have the Ramah to be soymechan to rely on that you could give him an aliyah. But there's no reason to go ahead looking for a Levi. If a Levi is a chiyuv, it means he needs an aliyah, whatever the chiyuvim are, and there's no kohen, then all the poskim today say you give him instead of the kohen. Because you can't give him any other aliyahs, unless it's Shabbos where you give him a maftir, or an achra, but it's during the week, and you can't give him any other aliyahs. Halacha is, if he's a chiyuv, then everybody agrees to give Levi instead of the kohen. Because once you give Yisrael, you cannot give a Levi afterwards. There's a very interesting shuvah from the Har Tzvi, the Tzvi Pesach Frank, that there was a person in a shul that every year he bought Mafti Yain. Mafti Yain is Yom Kippur, the last aliyah by Mincha. And Mafti Yain was a chashuv aliyah, people pay a lot of money for it. There's school lists involved in it, whatever that is, we'll leave for a different time. But Mafti Yain is a chashuv aliyah. There was a person in the shul who every year he bought Mafti Yain for many years. He paid a lot of money for it. Everybody knew it was his aliyah. One year the Gabbiam found out that this guy was really a Levi. He didn't tell anybody. For him it was very important, the Mafti Yain. That was what he cared about. So he never told anybody he was a Levi. And the Gabbiam found out one year that this guy's a Levi. So they gave Kohen Levi, and every year they would give a Levi again afterwards. So what should the Gabbiam do? He found out this guy's a Levi, what should he do? What would you do? What would you do? Find out the guy's a Levi. Huh?
He can do the brachas. He can do the Torah, so someone else can do the brachas. His name doesn't get mentioned.
Oh, so he could learn the haftarah, the brachas of the haftarah?
No, the Torah.
But not the brachas.
You call up a Yisrael for the brachas. He says the brachas stands aside, the lady does the Torah.
The lady does haftarah with the brachas haftarah or without the brachas haftarah?
Without. You cannot.
But for him, the chshivas was the aliyah and the brachas haftarah.
Okay, he wanted both.
He wanted both. So if two basic frames, first of all, we have to see from the shuvah a very interesting thing. He didn't say, this guy got Levi, he fooled everybody for many years. You know what I mean? Just send him away. He was doing something wrong. He doesn't say that. It's a big lesson for Gabbiam, we'll get to that in a second. He says, if the Gabbai is the one who knows that he's a Levi, nobody else knows that he's a Levi, so he says the Gabbai should keep quiet. He shouldn't say anything to anybody. No one knows he's a Levi. The only reason why you can't give a Levi after a different Levi is because of Gabbiam. People will think he's not a real Levi, there's something wrong with him, and therefore he's the first Levi. That means when you have a Kohen, you're not allowed to give another Kohen afterwards. Why? Because people will think the first Kohen who he gave the aliyah to is a Kohen Pabul, meaning is a Kohen that's not really a Kohen. Either he married a Grusha, or his father married a Grusha. Therefore, you can't go ahead and give a different Kohen aliyah afterwards. Why? Because people are going to think the first Kohen is a Pabul. He's not a real Kohen. So we don't want to be Moitzi-Laz, we don't want people to think the first Kohen is not a real Kohen. Therefore, you can't give a Kohen after a Kohen. The same thing with a Levi after a Levi, you can't give a Levi after a Levi. So here you have a Kohen, a Levi, and this person who's getting after it is also a Levi, who's getting it every year. What are you worried about? Pagam. People will think the first Levi is not a Levi. Nobody knows that this person who's getting after it every year was a Levi. And no one will ever know. The Gabbai should keep quiet, he shouldn't say anything to anybody, and continue giving him maftiyayin. That's what the Halacha-theory says. Now, one thing we see from the Shuvah, like I said before, that if somebody has a mishagas, a congregant he wants maftiyayin, and he's doing something wrong, he's not telling about anybody he's a Levi, the answer is not, you gotta set him straight. Because one thing we know, we don't set people straight so easily. And so you gotta deal with it. So the Halacha-theory goes there, the Sifrei Tzachrank, and it deals with this person, with this individual. They say that there was once a guy who came to shul and he got a guest in the shul, and the Gabbai gave him Revi. Now, especially in the Hasidic places, Revi is not a real chashav aliyah. Kamishi, Shishi, Shvi, Revi is not really a chashav aliyah. And this person held himself to be a chashav person. He was a little bit insulted that he got Revi. So on his way from leaving the bima, he whispers to the Gabbai in Yiddish. In the Heim, before in Europe, a flight gave in Revi to the ferret. He used to give Revi to the horses. He was all upset. So the Gabbai turns around to him and says, yeah, here also. That's not a Gabbai. The guy should have been fired right away. The person, right, he has his mishagas, but we got to deal with it. And see from the Sifrei Tzachrank, if a person has certain mishagas and he wants it, the Gabbai can't go ahead and say, I'm not responsible to deal with his craziness. I'll do what I have to do. I'll do what's right. But then he goes on, he says another very interesting thing to Halacha-theory. He says that he has another eitzah. Let's say people found out that he's a Levi, not just the Gabbai. Other people found out that this person is a Levi. So what do? The Gabbai can't just keep quiet. Everybody knows about it. So it says like this. He brings down Rav Kiva Eger. Kiva Eger says that the person who gets maftir, he's the person who's supposed to be the haftarah. The brachas and reading the haftarah. There's a halacha says if you gave a katan maftir, what do? Because the katan doesn't know the haftarah, you can't read it. But in halacha, I don't want to go through the whole halacha now, but there's a lot of mashmoyis in the halachas that the person who gets maftir, he's the one who has to say the brachas in the haftarah, and he's the one who has to lay the haftarah also. So it depends. If you lay from a klaf, like we lay in regular kriyas haftarah, we lay from a klaf, So the regular Kriyas Torah, I make a bracha, and the Balkoire lanes the laning of the week. Why? Because since he's being mitzi everybody, the halacha is you have to lane from a cloth, you have to lane from a Sefer Torah. Now, everyone's not laning from a Sefer Torah, everyone has a chumash in front of them. So the person who's laning, he's being mitzi everybody else in Kriyas Torah. So everyone has to listen and they yetzer with him. By the Haftarah, it's not that way. Unless you lane from a cloth, certain shuls they lane from the regular Nevi'im, they lane from the cloth, then the person who's laning is being mitzi everybody, because he's laning from a cloth. But if you don't have a cloth, and you're laning from regular chumash, so the person who's laning the Haftarah is not being mitzi everybody else. He's making a bracha, and he's being mitzi himself. Everybody else lanes quietly to themselves, because they're being mitzi themselves. So therefore, what should be done is the person who gets maftir should be the one who lays the haftarah also. Because if we give it to somebody else, I'm making the brachas, and someone else lays the haftarah, he's not being mitzi me, he's laying the haftarah himself. Therefore, in halacha is mashma in a bunch of places that the person who gets the maftir, he should be the one who lays the haftarah also, not just says the brachas. And Rav Kiva says, how about if you give it to a chacham, and the person can't lay the haftarah? So it says like this: the reason why we say kaddish after we finish the shivakruim of a regular week, we lay the regular pasha, then we say kaddish, and then we say maftir and haftarah. The reason why we say the maftir is because to call somebody up just for the haftarah, that's not covered for the Sefer Torah. You call somebody up to lane for a regular aliyah. To call somebody up just for the haftarah itself is a pagam with the Sefer Torah. It's not covered for the Sefer Torah that you can call somebody up just for Nevi'im and not for Torah itself, not for the Chamisha Chumsha Torah. Therefore, we say Kaddish, we finish the laning, we make a maftir that the person who we're calling up should also lane from the regular Torah, and then he'll lay in the haftarah, so it won't be a pagam in the Sefer Torah. They called somebody up just for Nevi'im. That's why we have maftir every week. So says Rabbi Kiva that if you call up a katan for maftir, he doesn't know how to lay in the haftarah, it's not so bad. Why? Since we already said the kaddish, we made a new aliyah, and everyone's asking, what do you have this extra aliyah for? We all know this extra aliyah is because we don't want to make a pagam with the Sefer Torah that you call somebody up just for the Nevi'im. So everybody knows already why you're doing it, and therefore it's okay. But, says Rabbi Kiva, that let's say it's a time where there's no maftir, and a tightness. You lay the haftarah, so it's Kohen Levi Yisrael, and now you lay the haftarah. Says Rabbi Kiva, they're ready where there's no kaddish, and the person who got the last aliyah is part of the chiyuvim, so we don't see they had to add an aliyah for somebody just for the maftir. Says Rabbi Kiva, they're the person who gets the Yisrael, he should definitely be the one to lay the maftir. He shouldn't give it away. But he says, what happened if you called up somebody who can't read the haftarah? Says Rabbi Kiva, what you should do is, don't let another person come up and lay them after a different person totally. You should take the Levi, who anyway already lamed, he had an aliyah from the Torah. The Levi should be the one to say the haftarah. So if it's a regular Shabbos, we have a maftir, not so bad. But if it's a mincha, for example, by a tainus, we have Kohen Levi Yisrael and no maftir, there he says you should not give it away to anybody else. It should be the person who's getting shlishi should lay the haftarah also. If you're stuck, then at least you should do is give the Levi the one to lay the haftarah, because he already had an aliyah in the Torah. That's what Kiva says. Says the Har Tzvi, this person who had a maftir yoina every year, and he still wants his maftir yoina, what he should do is Kohen Levi Yisrael, and let him as a Levi lay the birchas haftarah and the haftarah. That's the Har Tzvi's answer to such a person who wants the maftir every year. You see, you have to know a lot of halachas before you paskin who to give what to. So he dealt with this person. That's one halacha. Another halacha, famous halacha, is when you call up a kohen for an aliyah, and let's say the kohen can't come up. If he's in the middle of shemoneh-esrei, if he's in the middle of Pesukah de Zimra, even Birchas Kriya Shema, it could be he can come up. Pesukah de Zimra for sure, even Birchas Kriya Shema. Once you call up a kohen for an aliyah, and he's in the middle of davening, you realize he's in the middle of davening, he's allowed to come up and say the brachas on the Sefer Torah. If he's in the middle of shemoneh-esrei, he can't. So you call up a kohen, and you realize he's in the middle of shemoneh-esrei. What do you do? So the halacha is that you cannot call up another kohen instead of him. You just motion for a different kohen to come up, and he comes up. And the reason is because if you're going to call up again a different kohen, the same problem. If you think the first kohen was a pogrom, it means you call him up, and somebody said, oh, that guy, you can't give him an aliyah, you can't give him a kohen. Something wrong with him. And therefore you went ahead and you called up another kohen. Therefore you can't go ahead and call up another kohen, you motion to him to come up. That's by kohen, that's by Levi. By Yisrael, you don't have to do that. Because by Yisrael, there's no such thing as a pagam by Yisrael. Because Yisrael, no matter what type of Yisrael he is, you give him any aliyah you want. Even if he's Yisrael that's a mamzer, you're allowed to give him an aliyah. So any aliyah you can give a Yisrael. So therefore, you don't have to be chayshish to call the boy Yisrael, he's not there, or he's in the middle of davening shemoneh-esrei, you don't call up another one, you should be chayshish for pagam, you don't have to worry about pagam. That's what it says in halacha. The Maisa, a lot of places are knowing that even a Yisrael, you call up one Yisrael that is not there, you don't call up another one by his name. That depends on the minhag HaMakom. Some places will and some places won't. There's another interesting shaila about calling up aliyahs. The Avnei Nezer has a shuvah here that they sent him a shaila. Seems like in Germany, in his days, they stopped calling up people for an aliyah by their names. They didn't say Yitzchak ben Avram to come up for an aliyah. They were either giving out cards and say, here's a card and call up for this and this aliyah without calling up the person by name, or they would just say Yitzchak, come up, or whatever his last name was. And they would not call up him, Ben, his father, Yitzchak ben Avram. They wouldn't call him up that way. And the question went to the Avnei Nezer, and he came out very strong against it. And he says that the reason why we call somebody up for an aliyah, him and his father's name, Yitzchak ben Avram, let's say, the reason for that is built on, it says, Harei Kodesh, big holy mountains, Api Kabbalah for sure. It says every time we call somebody up by his name, the person has, every Jew has his oisius in the Torah. When you call him up by his name, says Avnei Nezer, he doesn't say it here, but he says it elsewhere, not in the Shuvah, that you call up a person by his name, he's connecting with his oisius in the Torah, and that's Api Kabbalah, a very important thing. So you shouldn't go ahead and call somebody up without saying his full name, Yitzchak ben Avram, let's say. And he says there's a lot of, mechsholim happen if you don't do that. A lot of bad things come out of it. He gives an example. He says, if you're not going to call somebody up to the Torah with his regular name, so people are going to forget their name. They're not going to know the Hebrew names. People have, they don't always call themselves by the Hebrew names. So they're not going to remember the Hebrew names. And he says it comes time, when guy's getting divorced, he's going to write a certain name in his get. It's not his real name. The get's not good. He's still married. His wife's Neshes Ish. She gets married to somebody else, and the kids are Mamzer. Says that in Israel, you have to make sure you call up a person by his full name. I had a story recently. Someone called me up that he got married, and he always used his non-Jewish name. And his ksubah had the name that he thought was his name. He was cleaning out his father's house after his father passed away, or I forgot exactly what happened. He was going through papers at his father's house, and he found his bris certificate. I never heard that before. Something called a bris certificate. So when they have a bris, they give you a certificate that you had a bris. I'm not sure why you need a certificate. Something you can't forget. But for some reason, they gave a bris certificate. My shver used to say that we say by a bris, Shem shenichlas the bris, can you connect the title of the chupah the ma'asim tovim? What's the same way you go to a bris is you go to title of the chupah the ma'asim tovim? What does that mean? You go to a bris, you come at the bris on a pillow, someone's carrying you in, you're not doing anything really. So he said was that if someone davens in the morning, so he davens mincha, goes home, eats supper, goes back to shul, he davens mincha again. Why? He forgot he daven mincha. Did I daven mincha? Did I daven mincha? Did I learn today's daf? Did I not learn today's daf? Did I recognize it? You forget. There's one mitzvah a person never forgets that he did his bris. It's impossible not to know if you have a bris or not. Kashem shenichlas a bris, it's a mitzvah you never forget that you did. Can you connect the title of the chupah the ma'asim tovim, that every mitzvah you do, you should do it in a way that you don't forget if you did it or not. But anyway, so this person had a bris certificate for some reason, and on his bris certificate it said a different name than he had on his ksubah. So this person was living for many years, and there's a question if he was really married. Because if you don't have a correct ksubah, he may not be married. So we asked what he should do. So I told him he's got to fix the ksubah. Because, no, he can't fix the ksubah. Why not? Because the ksubah is hanging in his living room. It was made very nice, and artists draw the whole ksubah. You can't change it. I said, you got to cross out the name and make the new name. I can't do that. So I told him, make a different ksubah. Take a different ksubah. Leave that ksubah hanging. No one has to know your real name. At least you should be married. So go ahead and take a regular ksubah and write up a new ksubah. I can't do that either. Why not? Because my wife's going to find out she wasn't married to me in the past 20 years, she's not going to appreciate it. So I was stuck with that guy. I didn't know what to do with him. I still don't know what to do with him. But if he would have been called up to the title with his regular name from when he was a kid, so the problem is this person became a Baal Tshuva when he was 30 or 40 years old. If he would have been called up to the title with his regular name from when he's bar mitzvah, so he would have known his real name. So that's what Abba Nezer says. You have to make sure you're called up to the title with your name and your father's name. And just interesting to know that for Aliyah, for the Torah, we call up you, ben your father. We know for Chaylim, you call up you, ben your mother, not the father. And the reason for that is because when someone's a Chaylim, it comes time to tefillah, when someone davens to Hashem, he has to make sure everything is clear. He asks Hashem for something. There's a chinuch in last week's Pasha Bikurim. It says a ger or a lady can't bring Bikurim. It says a arsa Sat Jul. They gave me the land. A ger or a lady, they weren't in the nachlos of Eretz Yisrael, so they can't say Bikurim. And it says, see from over here, when you say a tefillah to Hashem, you got to make sure that it's very clear. You can't say Hashem knows what I want. No, the tefillah to Hashem has to be very clear. So they say that's why when you daven for a chayla, you say someone ben his mother, because the mother is definite. A father, you see in the Gemara a lot in the Playtime, you're not always sure who your father is. Baruch Hashem, we do know, but it's not 100% clear always who the father is. The mother is 100% clear. So for tefillah, when you're davening to Hashem, the tefillah has to be 100% clear. You have to call up the father, somebody ben his mother. For Aliyas, that's something else, they call up him ben his father. It's a good way to remember. A lot of times Gabbiam, when they change the Mishaberichs, they forget when to say what. When to say the father's name, when to say the mother's name. The cloud is if it's a tefillah, then it's always the mother's name. If it's not a tefillah, then it's the father's name. There's another halacha which is very important, is to know where to stop when you make haisafis. People make a haisafis on Shabbos. Shabbos is the only time you're allowed to make haisafis. And you add aliyas. And a lot of times the Gabbai decides where to add aliyas. He doesn't put it into the Rav. And he makes haisafis in weird places. Now, there's two main halachas they have to know with haisafis. One halacha is that we know in the Torah that's called Pashas Stumois and Pashas Psuchos, Samachs and Peis. You're not allowed to make a Isafa within 3 psukim, it's less than 3 psukim, before or after a Samach or a Pei. That means, if you want to make a suffer and the parsha is full of samach and pei, parsha conclude every few psukim with samach and pei, you may be stuck. You cannot stop for an aliyah within 3 psukim, is 2 psukim or less, 1 or 2 psukim before a samach and after a samach. And the reason is because someone who walks in the middle may think that you just started from the parsha, from the samach or pei, and you're only laying 2 psukim. Or he may think, he may leave, and he left over 2 psukim left, he may think the next aliyah is only going to be 2 psukim. So therefore, 2 psukim within a samach or a pei, you're not allowed to stop. I've been at shul many times that they made a suffer, and they stopped 1 pasuk after the samach, 2 psukim after the samach, and Baruch Hashem, there was somebody there who screamed out, says, you got to keep it going. There's another shaila, which the Mishnah Berurah brings down, you should be machmir on, but if you don't have a choice, you can do otherwise. Which is, even by a samach and by a pei, when you're allowed to stop. So if the previous parsha was only 2 psukim, that means the whole, between samach and pei, there was only 2 psukim, says the Mishnah Berurah, you should not stop by that samach or pei. Because the whole parsha before is only 2 psukim, says you should be machmir, you should not stop after a parsha with only 2 psukim. You're allowed to stop before a parsha with 2 psukim. That means you want to stop in the parsha in front of you only has 2 psukim in it, that you could do. But to finish off where the parsha only has 2 psukim, that says the Mishnah Berurah you should not do. It says if you don't have a choice and you need a lot of aliyahs, and you're in a parsha with so many pays and samachs, you could be making. But the chatchila, you should not stop by a parsha after a parsha which is only 2 psukim. And then another thing is that you shouldn't stop by davar lo tov. Something that's not good, or something that's sorrow, or something that have a bad to Klal Yisrael, you should not stop by such a parsha. You should continue going and make sure when you stop, it's by davar tov, not by davar lo tov. I was once in a shul in Eretz Yisrael, and it was Parshas Balak, and the Balkaira was leaning, and the end of Parshas Balak is by Hiya Mesed B'Magefa, Avar V'Esem Elef. That's the end of Parshas Balak. So the person was leaning, and he's Hiya Mesed B'Magefa, Avar V'Esem Elef, V'Dav Hashem V'Yishlem, Pins V'Los V'Hav L'Koyim. He's going. No one stops him. He goes a few psukim with the Pinchas and he stops. So I went over to him afterwards and said, what happened? Why did you want to Parshas Pinchas? So he tells me, you're not allowed to stop by davar lo tov. You can't stop by something that's not nice. And here, Mesed B'Magefa, Avar V'Esem Elef is a davar lo tov. So therefore I went into Parshas Pinchas. That's what he told me. Truth is, he's right. You're not supposed to stop by davar lo tov. But one thing you have to know, whatever Chazal said, is said. Chazal finished Parshas Balak after davar lo tov, it's done. You may ask the question why, but you can't change it. And he tells me, anyway, the parshas that we have doesn't make a difference. Because there used to be a time they finished Chumash once every 3 years, so anyway the parshas were set up differently. So anyway, the parshas don't really make a difference to us, so therefore I went to Parshas Pinchas. That's what he told me. Before we go further, I want to tell you something. There was no Rav in that shul. They should know. Don't blame it on the rabbi. There was no rabbi in that shul, and everybody was doing what they wanted. So I said to him, oh, is that so? You can do whatever you want. You can let any parsha you want? He says, yeah, you can stop whatever you want, but the parsha, and then the parshas don't mean anything. Now that's a mistake, because the parshas mean a lot. The aliyahs that we have today, that's questionable if we have to dafka stop at the aliyahs that we have today. They say the Goyin wasn't makbid on the Sheni Shlishi Revi that we have today, because it was made up by people who loved Africa knew what they were doing. That's what the Goyin says. That's questionable. But the parshas that we have today, that's 100% clear. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch, Simon Kuf Lamed Hey, I think it is, that if a tzibur didn't lay 1 week, they got into a fight. The Bakari says, listen, you're not paying me enough, I'm not laying this week. So they didn't lay. All the person who had it was his Sefer Torah says, he didn't give a shisha last week, you can't use my Sefer Torah. There was a fight, they didn't lay. The next week, you're allowed to lay well, if they made peace during the week, you're allowed to lay 2 parshas the following week. But how about if they were to fight for 2 weeks in a row, and now you owe 2 parshas? What should you do? The halacha is you're not allowed to lay 3 parshas at a time. The most you can lay at a time is 2 parshas. 3 parshas you're not allowed to lay at a time. So therefore, what you should do is, when they make peace, lay 2 parshas, and the following week lay again 2 parshas, and then you caught up. So you see that the parshas that we have is made by Chazal, and you can't change it. This shaila happens to come up. Hopefully it's not a common thing that you have to fight and there's no laying. But it does come up when the last day Pesach falls on Shabbos. So the last day Pesach falls on Shabbos in Chutz La'aretz. So in Eretz Yisrael they're already laying the next parsha. So if it was Parshat Achrei Mois Kedoshim, a double parsha, so you have a lot of Bachrim that live in Eretz Yisrael, and after Pesach they go to Eretz Yisrael, so they have to catch up on the parsha. So if the parsha was a single parsha, so the next week they can catch up, they could lay 2 parshas together. But if that Shabbos was Achrei Mois Kedoshim, so the next week they want to make an American minion, as they call it, and they want to lay Achrei Mois Kedoshim and Emor. Halacha is you can't do that. You can't lay 3 parshas together. So they do by mincha maybe, but to lay in the morning 3 parshas together, you can't do it. And the reason is because 3 parshas, halacha says you can't do it. And so we see that the parshas that we have today are set, and you can't go change the lane from one parsha to the next. There's one more thing I want to speak about, which is saying Kaddish. Now, in halacha, it's good to know this, not so negay l'maisa, but it's good to know this. In halacha we see, there's no in halacha when I speak about chiyuvim, I'm not going to go into the whole thing of chiyuvim now, that's only a whole separate share for that, who has kedima in chiyuvim. But in halacha, we don't find anywhere speaking about who davens for the omid when you have chiyuvim. In halacha is brought down who says Kaddish. Because in the times when the Shulchan Aruch was written, only one person said Kaddish B'Shmum. There weren't 2 or 3 people saying Kaddish. There was one person who said Kaddish, and the question was, who would say that Kaddish? Which chiyuv comes first? Which chiyuv has kedima in saying that Kaddish? And over the years, I'm not sure exactly when it changed, but multiple people started saying Kaddish. The Kaddish that we say, Kaddish Yosef, that the people say, basically what the schus for the nifter is that you say Kaddish, and everyone answers to your Kaddish the same way when you daven. You lead the services, and everyone answers to what you said. Kaddish is the same thing. The question is, when you have 2 people saying Kaddish, then they're both leading at the same time. Imagine 2 people saying Chazal Shashatz at the same time. How does that work? But for some reason over the years, and that's the minute today, multiple people say Kaddish. But one thing that is important to know is that if there's a bunch of people saying Kaddish, then, and one person is saying Kaddish, and no one hears him, so basically his Kaddish was nothing. Basically no one's answering to his Kaddish. Kaddish is not a prayer that we're saying it. Kaddish is, you say it and people answer to you. And if you're saying it and no one's answering to your Kaddish, then it's not a Kaddish. So I know a lot of shuls, the Rabbi asked people, everyone to come around together, say Kaddish together. This way, everyone's answering to all the Kaddish together, which is a good thing. But if you have everyone saying Kaddish and one guy's in the back saying Kaddish quietly to himself, the question is if he's Yotzer, his chiyuv of what he's supposed to be doing with the Kaddish. One more point I want to speak out, which I find a lot, is a lot of times you have somebody coming in, it was a chiyuv, and he came late. So he comes in, especially to mincha, He comes running at the mincha, and they started Chazos Hashatz already. They started the shemoneh-esrei, shemoneh-esrei already, and they're almost finished. And he comes running in the shul. He's a chiyuv. He has to daven for Amid. So the Gabbiam would go over the person who's davening and say, okay, to finish shemoneh-esrei, let him go over and daven Chazos Hashatz. The halacha is that if somebody did not daven the still shemoneh-esrei, someone didn't daven the first shemoneh-esrei, he's not allowed to daven the hoicha shemoneh-esrei. He's not allowed to daven Chazos Hashatz. So we have a guy coming running in late to mincha, and he's a chiyuv and he wants to daven for Amid. He has to first daven the tefillah b'lachash, and then first could he go ahead and daven Chazos Hashatz. Without that, he can't daven. This I see all the time. And the problem is the Gabbai is going to tell him he can't daven, it's going to be upset at the Gabbai, and then you have to go to the rabbi. The rabbi guy take the blame. Take the blunt. But the Gabbai is the one who has to know this first to stop the person from going up to the Amid. Because he's not supposed to daven if he didn't daven the shemoneh-esrei b'lachash first. Anybody have any questions?
That's a busha to the person who had the Amid, right? To take him away and put the other.
Yeah, so, but the person's not a chiyuv. But the person's not a chiyuv, he understands.
But it's still.
Yeah, so that's the sensitivity of the Gabbai.
And
yeah. That's the sensitivity of the Gabbai. The problem is the person who wants it is going to be very upset they're not giving it to him.
Tell him he's got to come on time.
I have a coin for Shabbos. By minute, I can send out the coin to gain other aliyahs.
So sending out Kehanim to get aliyahs, is a big shiloh. The Maisa, every shul you got to see what the minig is over there. Most shuls, the reason why you give a kohen aliyah is to be mechaber the kohen. Now, there was a tshuva, I forgot who it was from, I just checked it out before I came, that there was a person who had a minion in his house. He had a minion in his house. And he wanted to give the aliyahs to people who he invited to come down in his house. And there would be a kohen who would come in every week, and he'd take away 2 aliyahs. And this person didn't want to give the kohen the aliyah. So what should he do? So, over there the halacha is, if a person has his own minion in his house, and the kohen is not invited to come, the kohen can't go ahead and say, listen, I'm davening, can give me an aliyah. You're not mechuyev to be mechaber the kohen if he doesn't belong there. It's a covenant for the kohen, but if he doesn't belong there, you're not mechuyev to be mechaber. That's a private thing. When you have a shul, everybody has a right to daven there, so here it depends also. The thing you have to know by aliyahs is that a person who's a member of the shul, a person who davens there all the time, he has kedima before anybody else. Why? Because it's their shul. They pay their dues, whatever it is, they have kedima. A guest, if you want to give him an aliyah, he doesn't have kedima. A kohen guest that comes in is also a shayla. Maybe you don't have to give him an aliyah because he's coming as a guest. He doesn't have a right to be tevei the aliyahs. He's not part of the aliyah system. But if you have kehanim who are part of the system, they're mispalim in the shul, or they pay membership in the shul, and they're constantly getting the aliyahs. So in most shuls, they ask the kehanim to leave. And halacha, it's okay to ask the kohen to leave. Explain to them, listen, we give you plenty of covet. They get an aliyah every mincha or every Shabbos. It's enough. We need some other aliyahs. You have a right to ask the kohen to leave.
But if the kohen is a Rav,
for what reason?
If the kohen is a Rav, he's given moichel. So there's another thing you can ask the kohen.
For what reasons can you ask a kohen to leave?
So what reasons can you ask a kohen to leave? So we'll get to that in a second. But first, there's something called the kohen doesn't have to necessarily leave. If you ask the kohen and say, well, moichel ha-koven, the kohen has a right to be moichel his koven. And then you could say, mechilas ha-kohen, and you call somebody else up. Even though the kohen is in the shul. If you ask him, the question is, if the kohen didn't ask the kohen. Now, I grew up in a shtibel, and I remember every Shabbos mincha, the Gabbiam would get up there, Ya'amoid, mechilas ha-kohen, and say something. Every Shabbos. So I thought that, this guy's doing something wrong. But I checked into the halacha, and the halacha is that if the minute of the shul is, and that is the minute of the shul, that they always do b'mechilas kehanim, meaning the kohen knows that Shabbos mincha, you can't come in every Shabbos mincha and get aliyah. We need aliyahs for other people. That's the minute of the shul. The Gabbai has a right to say b'mechilas kehanim. Not everybody used to that. You have to ask, everybody has to ask the rabbi, so we're not passing the shilas here. Certain shuls are very, very makbid. First of all, not to say b'mechilas kehanim if the kohen is there. And certain shuls are very makbid, not even to ask the kohen to leave. Not even to ask the kohen, you need the aliyah, they won't ask the kohen to leave. That depends on every shul, the minhag hamakar. Al pi halacha, if you see a place doing that, you don't have to be upset at them. Because there is, in halacha, there is a source to go ahead and say b'mechilas kehanim, if that is the minhag of that place. Now, when can you ask the kohen to leave? For what aliyahs? It also depends on the minhag hamakar. It also depends. Then you got to ask your rabbi. You know, if the kohen is getting every single week, then you can ask him to leave. If not, that's not, in halacha, doesn't make a difference when, how important it is. If it's chiyuvim, there's a bunch of chiyuvim that require aliyahs, it's much easier to ask the kohen to leave. Definitely. Definitely much easier to ask the kohen to leave.
So, as a kohen, just wanted to interject. I mean, there's a according to Meik Poskim, there's a mitzvah to say the oraisa of the kiddushta. It's not so pashut to just say the mechilas kohen. I mean, it's a shiloh of the nisr the oraisa. So that's why you have to really consult with the Rav of the shul to know what the policy is.
Yeah, that's why the people who don't even ask the kohen to leave is because of the kiddushta. You have to be mechaber the kohen. The question to that is that by benching, also have to be mechaber the kohen. If a benching for some reason we ignore the kohen, or we just say b'shus hakohen, it's enough. Benching and aliyah are basically the same b'kedashtas. For some reason, by benching the minhag is the same b'shus hakohen, but by aliyahs they're very much more makbid on b'kedashta. That's it. Like the rabbi said, you have to ask the rabbi of the shul exactly when you can ask the kohen to leave.
Who gets the star for the kiddushta? Is it the gabbai or is the whole shul's star?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Actually, I should know it's the gabbai.
Ask this the gabbai, no?
Gabbai needs to, right? The Rav doesn't enforce the line.
Gabbais are shaliach of Mitzvah.
Yeah, that's
No problem.
yeah.
If someone's meeting, excuse me, a bar mitzvah, let's say at a hotel or a private party, and the whole family's Levian, let's say you have one kohen, and two Yisrael, and everybody else is Levian.
Yeah, so the law is Isha Kula Kehanim. If you have a city that everybody's Kehanim, you give one kohen after the next, no chash for Kehanim. Isha Kula Kehanim is a law, and I think in Simon Kuflan Hay also, that you don't have to worry about the Gabbiam, no one else to give aliyahs to.
So you give the Levian.
Yeah, you give Kehanim with aliyahs if you want. Fine. First aliyah.
You would mention that calling up by the father,
Yeah.
tefillah by the mother,
Right.
everything else, but the mishberach is a tefillah. Afterwards, you say mishberach, and that's a tefillah.
Mishaberach is a tefillah. They say the father's name.
But you say for tefillahs, you would use the
Yeah.
mother's name also.
Answer the question.
And would it be wrong to use the mother's name if somebody insisted?
No, minhag is we use the father's name by Mishaberach. By Mishaberach for Aliyah Torah. Mishaberach for Torah would never use the father's name.
No, I know for
Same person. The same person, you make a Mishaberach for the same person afterwards, you use his mother's name.
Right, but
It could be the Mishaberach is not a tefillah, it's a bracha. Could be.
and would it be wrong if the person insisted, I want my mother's name also?
So the klal is if the minhag is they do the father's name, even the person insists you don't listen to him. You don't change the minhag on this reason.
Oh, just with that also. And what about the Kam Ali Rafa? That's a tefillah, we also use the father's name.
Isn't it an Indian of Rachamim? The mother represents Rachamim, so if a person needs Rachamim,
So then you use the mother's name.
But a person's already deceased,
And you,
it's not an Indian of Rachamim anymore. So that's why, in Stam, that's why.
anytime a person is deceased, you can use the father's name. Okay. Anytime persons, yeah.
Yesterday for the Torah we called Yamot Shishi, is that correct?
Yeah, so that's I had one speak about that also. That's where the question comes.
Repeat the question.
He asked when by the Teichachah, there's a question if you call up the Aliyah or not. And I want to speak to that. That's where, because of this Avnei Nezer, people are very makbid, even for Teichachah, to call up the person by his name. And not just that, there's also a Shiloh, when someone calls up his father for an Aliyah. The Gabbiam calls up his father for an Aliyah. Certain places will say, Yamayv Avi Moiri, and that's it. But by a lot of places that makbid, the person should say his father's name. Yamayv Avi Moiri, Yitzchak ben Avram. Are you saying, even though you're saying your father's name, doesn't make a difference. To call up an Aliyah, you have to say the person's full name. They say that Stipler, when he had a minyan, and they would call him up for an Aliyah, so the person would call him up, they didn't want to say Yamayv Yaakov, he thought it was his Rebbe, and so God Ladar, he didn't want to say his name. So he would say Yamayv Rebbe Moiri. And the Stipler would go up there and say his own name. Yamayv Yaakov, Israel Ben, whatever his father's name was, he would say his name B'dafka, because a person has to say his name, has to be called up to the Torah with his full name. So I know some places have a minute, they say Stam Avi Moiri, but a lot of places are makbid, they say Avi Moiri and they say the father's name. Once you say Avi Moiri first, then you can say the father's name, full name. And therefore by Teichachah, it's the same thing.
How about a son, Beni so-and-so? Would you say your own name?
Yes. Yeah, you see the Stipler said his own name. He called himself up to the Torah with his full name. The person didn't want to do it, he was Atchkava for his Rebbe, and he called himself up with his name.
Thank you so much. Yishar Koach Rav Lichtenstei. Thank you so much for that beautiful shir, and certainly it only touches the tip of the iceberg.